And now on Congleton Radio, it's Tim Taylor with Tim's Talking.
Well, thank you, Stuart. This is the number 6 Tim's Talking of the series. And for the first time I find myself completely outnumbered by ladies with some of the sharpest minds in Congleton. Kay Wesley and Susie Mead, two leading lights of the Women's Equality Party in the area. Kay Wesley has the distinction of being the first councillor in the United Kingdom to represent the Women's Equality Party, which in itself is dedicated to highlighting and dismantling obstacles to gender equality. Kay is also one of Congleton's leading businesswomen, and that she owns Kanga Health, a pharmaceutical digital marketing business. Kay's business experience extends to international level when she floated a company called TopJobs.net, a UK company, but on the Nasdaq stock market in New York, and it raised $40 million. Kay is also a school governor, a Beaver Scout leader, and has worked with the local youth theatre. When she was elected to Congleton Town Council in 2019, Kay was supported by 33% of the East Ward voters, and she will of course be standing for Congleton Town Council again this year, but in the newly renamed South East Ward. Unusually, Kay records everything she does for the residents she serves on a specifically designed website called k-wesley.com. So after this chat show, if anybody listening does a search for k-wesley.com, then the evidence of your eyes will tell you, the community, what a vast amount of Kay's work we all have to be grateful for. It was hardly surprising when Cheshire Life magazine ran a public poll to choose their 70 Platinum Jubilee champions. This was to celebrate the late Queen's 70 years on the throne, with a garden party at Crewe Hall. Kay was the only person from Congleton to make that list. Now, when Kay was voted in, there were 20 councillors on Congleton Town Council. When we go to the polls again in May, it will be 22. And at the moment, Kay is the only member of the Women's Equality Party among the massed ranks of independents, Lib Dems and Conservatives. So like Tigger and Winnie the Pooh, the wonderful thing about Kay, at the moment she's the only one. But she hopes that by the time the elections come around in May, there'll be another Women's Equality Party councillor on Congleton Town Council, and that's my other guest, Susie Mead. She will be standing for the North East Ward on Congleton Town Council. Kay will also be taking her considerable skills to the polls for Cheshire East Council, where she'll be fighting the East Ward. Now, they're both quite formidable businesswomen, because like Kay, Susie runs her own business. It's called the Friendly Faces Nursery, and she employs 8 people. And she's also set up a special educational needs coordinator hub, because Susie has skills in education for special needs, as well as she's can teach swimming, and also it's a little bit musical, as is Kay, but we'll come on to that later on. But a major theme for both Susie and Kay is not only violence against women and girls, but the cost of childcare. And at this stage, I think I've rumbled on enough, Kay. Can you tell me why childcare is so important to the economy and what more the government can do for it?
Well, thanks for having us on, Tim and Stuart. It's great to be here. I think when you look at what will drive the economy, often development and progress is couched in terms of new buildings, new offices, new physical infrastructure, new railways and all the rest of it. But actually what is really missing is that social infrastructure, and childcare is infrastructure. If you look at what's going to enable families and parents to get to work, childcare is absolutely vital. And we ran a survey a few years ago here in Congleton, and 83% of people who responded to that survey told us that the lack of affordable childcare had impacted their ability to work or study or their family life in some way, shape or form. So childcare is a way in which you get people back to work, you get them off benefits, you get them paying taxes and earning more money and feeding their families, and it helps to lift up families across the board and make them more successful.
Well, you can see that Susie's the expert in this area because she runs a childcare business basically.
Yeah.
Susie, what's your reaction to what Kay said, and how can this really be driven forward, especially in the Congleton area?
It's crucial really to get people back to work, get mums into work, have a flexible, have flexible support for mums so that they can go and work properly. And I think it's massive in Congleton to get the support. We're trying to do some different things at the moment to help mums to be, get training and get time to get their different bits and bobs really.
Because a lot of these women who are on super low incomes or they're not earning at all, they're reliant on benefits. They have no choices. They have 2 kids at home, and Susie sees it all the time. As soon as they can get their foot in the door with their back in their career, then they can start to change their life. They can start to buy things for their children and so on. But often the cost of childcare is as much as their earnings would be, so it's just not viable. It doesn't make any sense, economically for these women to work. And I think it especially impacts single mums, doesn't it, Susie?
Yeah,
I was going to ask that, Susie. You must see this poverty.
Yeah.
The women are in poverty.
Yeah.
Guys like myself don't get it, frankly. I admit that. What do you see of that firsthand?
We see lots of different things. We get children from very affluent backgrounds, and we get children from really poor backgrounds. And at the moment, we're seeing families that can't eat, can't afford to live, can't afford to put the heating on, can't afford to clothe and bath the children properly. And one of the things we've done at nursery is to try and help these parents to be able to just afford the basics of living. At the moment, times are really hard, and it's a real struggle for parents. And we're seeing a lot of problems. We've set up a clothes bank, we've done a holiday fund to get children into places. And we've got lots of different incentives to try and get children to be able to just have a normal life. It's a massive problem at the moment.
And how hard is it for you when you're seeing this poverty face up? You're meeting it head on. People like myself, the majority of us have never seen it. How hard is it for you to keep your act together? Because you've got your job to do as well as staring this in the face.
I think that's one of the things that drives me, and it's one of the things that's made me certainly passionate about being a councillor, is to try and get things to help people, to get them back on their feet, and if I can make a little bit of a difference, then it's great. I mean, we've done some of the things we've done at the moment is to set up a community allotment just to provide free food for people, so they can learn how to cook and how to provide for their families, how to grow, so actually they can grow it themselves, and they can help themselves as well if they don't know how. So we're teaching the families and children how to grow and how to survive on lower incomes as well.
That's your work as leader for the Bromley Bloomers.
Yeah, definitely.
I might let you know at this stage that sometime in the future, near election time, Congleton Radio and the Tim's Talking plan to do a whole show on the Bromley issues, which I think we think that would be a good time to highlight them just before the election. So if people do have feelings they want to express,
do you know what? Bromley Farm is a fantastic community. It's a large area, lots of different people live there, and the community spirit of the individuals, the people, the families, is great. And I think, sometimes it gets a bad rap, but I think it's a great place with huge potential. And Susie will do a fantastic job as its councillor.
Thank you.
On the subject of the problems that women face, that guys like myself, I'm ashamed to say, don't really know about or get. One of the statistics that frightens me, frankly, and I'm hard to reconcile with it happening, is that there's an instance of domestic abuse reported every day in Congleton, and an incident of sexual violence reported every week, I think you're telling me earlier, Kay, this is just the stuff that's reported.
Yes, exactly.
You know, what on earth is going on out there? Why can't we do more about it?
Well, do you know what, Tim? Congleton is not unique. It's not like Congleton is particularly bad.
No, it's just where we are.
This is worldwide and certainly UK-wide. And I think the thing, domestic abuse is very underreported as a crime, and sexual violence is very underreported as well. It takes a woman 4 or 5 times to be a victim of violence before she'll report it in the home. So the statistics are terrible, and as you say, 1 incident a day reported to the police, so presumably a lot more incidents are actually happening behind the scenes. And I think that the fact that it's reported, the fact that you know those figures are a result of me being in the council, quite simply. Those figures were never reported before. So we have an antisocial behaviour working group, which I chair, and previously we just reported street antisocial behaviour. You know, and honestly, I said to my colleagues, if there was a violent incident every day in the town centre, you'd be horrified, wouldn't you? But because there's a violent incident behind closed doors, we just kind of forget it. You know, we just make the town look nice and forget about what's happening. And it's still a crime. So those figures, I insisted, we brought all the crime figures out, including the domestic abuse figures. And as a result of that, we've changed the way this is dealt with in Congleton. So we now have a domestic abuse clinic here in Congleton, a hub where people can go. So I got the funding for that. I persuaded the service providers and the police run it with My Cheshire Without Abuse, the service provider. So people can go to it with no obligations and ask experts, is this what's happening to me? Is it abuse? Because you know, as you probably know, in controlling relationships, it can be very difficult to pick apart what's going on. So you can go and can get advice. Is this abuse? How do I escape? What can I do? Will the police help? Will they do it? You know, I don't want a police car rolling up to my front door. How can I deal with it in another way? So this clinic really helps people deal with these situations before sometimes they become violent situations. And you know what's happened recently? One of the narratives around domestic abuse is often family breakdown is not the right answer. Sometimes change of behaviour of the perpetrator is the right answer. You know, you don't necessarily you can't lock everybody up. So sometimes you do need to. And what we've seen in Congleton now, although the domestic abuse rates are consistent year on year, the number of arrests has doubled. And the reason the number of arrests has doubled is because victims are now empowered because of this new narrative.
Right,
they're empowered to say, and the police are obviously treating it differently. They don't take no for an answer. Often the victim will say, no, please don't arrest him, you know, but the police will not take no for an answer. They send in a specialist team. The woman gets support. We have perpetrator counselling in custody. So if a man's taken into custody, he can start to examine his own behaviours and maybe start thinking about different changes that can be made. So we're now intervening much earlier, and part of that is because these statistics have come out, because we've got the domestic abuse clinic in town that I made happen. Now I say I brought these ideas forward, but my councillor colleagues voted to support them. Obviously, like you, they were horrified and they didn't, you know, they wanted to do something about it. Yeah. But the reality is, you know, a candidate from another party actually said to me quite recently, do you know, Kay, you've done more in 30 months than the last council did in 30 years for victims of domestic violence in Congleton.
That's a staggering. Can I ask at this point something quite interesting? I heard David McGifford, the chief officer of Congleton Town Council, speak at a breakfast meeting of the Chamber of Commerce and Enterprise. He said he felt that politics rarely surfaced at town council level and that you all tended to work together. Now you're the fourth one I've had on. I've had the Indies on, the Conservatives, Lib Dems, and now the Women's Equality Party. And following on from that, I read a column by Jackie Weaver, who, as you know, I'm quite close to, and Jackie expressed the opinion that politics is designed for conflict. So these are two knowledgeable people, different levels, saying much the same thing in a different way. Now, so far, the score is 2-1 against agreeing with David McGifford. Two of the parties said, no, I don't think we do discuss, and we don't really see it like that we particularly work together. And one did. Now the score's totally 2-1 against the fact that Tom McTaggart works together. What you've just told me seems to illustrate two things. One, they do work together, and does it help that you're the only one?
I think
in a way, because you're not really got any flag above your head apart from looking after women.
It's a really good. Oh, that's not true, because I look after all my residents as a councillor.
But you're not. Your name of your party is Women's Equality Party. They're Labour and Dems or Conservatives.
They've got baggage.
Ideologies.
They've got baggage.
Ideologies and.
We have an ideology.
Yes, well, we all do.
But I think, you know, the Women's Equality Party wants to do politics differently. That's kind of our hashtag, right? We're disgusted at the Yahoo behaviour. It's like it's like Eton, isn't it?
Kids,
Our House of Commons, men shouting
Jackie
at each
Reed
other.
said the country is being run by 12-year-olds.
Yeah, exactly.
Very good expression.
Yeah, this idea of calling names, all of that shouting, we just think it's, you know, and honestly, if we had a majority women in Parliament, I don't think it would be like that, honestly. So it is, you know, it's schoolboy behaviours. So, and I'm a bit on the fence. Yes, people have agreed with the things I've brought, because I've brought a collaborative approach, right? And I talk to people, and I don't call people, you know, I don't behave in that combative way, because I don't believe it. I haven't done in business either, ever. So my business is run in the same way. We have a fantastic culture. So
and you like employing people better than yourself, don't you?
Exactly, I employ people better than myself.
Yeah.
But that's one thing. But it's not true to say that we agree on everything. And we have had, I mean, for example, we're a big white ribbon council, which is men speaking out against men's violence, which is a great thing, is you have male ambassadors. We have some councillors who've consistently opposed the white ribbon movements. It's been very successful.
On what basis?
We've had people coming up to us saying
on what basis did they
that
oppose
it's sexist.
Right.
That they say it's so what about the male victims? And I mean, that's just such a patriarchal view of the world.
Yeah.
When yes, there are male victims, of course.
Yeah.
All violence is wrong, of course. But the white ribbon is about dealing with that sort of toxic masculinity, you know.
Yeah.
And
Power and force.
all of that, yeah.
British,
yeah. So that's what it's about. And so we have a few councillors who simply don't get that. And yes, so we have had, and you know, I've had sexist remarks made to me by other councillors. You know, I've had a councillor once actually said to me on the Chamber of Commerce, when I was going for a meeting with the Chamber of Commerce, said, oh, I'm sure Kay can charm a few businessmen into giving a donation to this cause. I said, well, I'm not going as a dolly bird. I'm going as a business owner to speak to my peers. You know, that's so patronising. Yeah. So there's that everyday sexism. Obviously, I wasn't injured or, you know, sort of wounded permanently. But that everyday sexism is there. You know, and we see, and also
casual.
That everyday politics is there. We see people scoring points. Of course we do. They're human, and they do, and that's what they do. And we do have some very political individuals. So I would beg to differ with Mr. McGifford. He is a white ribbon ambassador, so he totally gets it. He's very into civility, respect, and treating people properly. He's a great chief officer, I have to say.
He's very respected, I gather.
Yes, he is very respected, but he knows full well that he said something to the newspaper about, I don't think we've not had any complaints of sexism. I said, David, come on, we've had, you know. He said, I haven't had any formal. I said, I know we haven't done taken it formal, but come on, to say there's no sexism, there's no prejudice. Of course
everywhere, of course.
And we had a terrible incident. I mean, the reason we're into this party is it's equality. So yes, women's equality, because they're the biggest single disadvantaged group. But we do stuff for the LGBT community, we do stuff for the elderly, we do stuff for people on low incomes, the disabled. And we had, you know, one of my council colleagues made a remark about Gypsy Roma people, and I, you know, pulled them up, and we had, you know, we did stuff about that. As I said, hybrid meetings, opening up our meetings so that people can watch them from home, which I've again been instrumental in. That's so that people who can't travel because they haven't got a car, because they're disabled or they've got caring responsibility, can access our democracy. This stuff's important. And again, most colleagues do agree with many, you know, with those things. They're not that controversial, so in a way it's easy to get those things forward, but you do have to bring them to the table in the first place.
Susie, how helpful is it for you? Hopefully you're going to become a councillor for the first time. To have someone like Kay It was trod the path. It has become the first UK, whole United Kingdom, the first Women's Equality Party councillor. How helpful is that to you? What do you think you can draw from Kay to ease your path into hopefully an election to the council?
Every step of the way, Kay's there helping me and guiding me. I am new to it, so I do need a little bit of support on some things, and it's nice to have that support. In fact, the whole party's been very welcoming, very kind, and have encouraged me, I think, to push my personal boundaries. I think one of the proudest things I've ever done in my life was go to March of the Mummies and stand on a stage in Manchester talking about the impacts of the childcare crisis at the moment in front of thousands of people. If you'd have told me I was going to do that this time last year, I wouldn't have believed you, because it's just not something that I'd ever have done, and they pushed me a little bit, which is nice, and it's been really rewarding, and I've felt empowered by doing that, and
you were brilliant.
Enjoyed it. Thank you. But it's having that sort of encouragement and that kindness and support is invaluable.
And what was it like talking on Radio 4? That's a nice string to your bow, isn't it?
Yeah, it was it's slightly nerve-wracking, because I've done one radio show before during lockdown about childcare problems. Well, it was about the impact of COVID, but that was the first one I've ever done sort of about the childcare cost crisis. So it was interesting. It was good fun, slightly nerve-wracking, and yeah, I enjoyed it.
Also, the Women's Equality Party does seem to come up with some great lines. The March for the Mummies. I mean, as a former journalist, now a publicist, that's inspiring stuff.
It was on Halloween that we did it.
Sometimes these little one-line tags, they really work. And I think you feel that the March for the Mummies achieved quite a bit.
Yeah, definitely.
Can you enlarge on that? Where you've got so far and where you're going?
It's got the political parties sort of thinking about it and getting things getting things to change. It's made a lot of different. We've got a lot of awareness basically out there, because I think people think that nursery managers are taking lots of money off parents. And going on a holiday to the Maldives or something with it, and that's not the case at all. Actually, nurseries are quite underfunded themselves and are struggling to meet and keep their own lights on, never mind.
Well, 4,000 have closed in the last 12 months in the UK.
Yeah.
So they're closed, and so there's even less provision of childcare.
And this hurts the economy, of course.
Yeah, of course.
Well, apart from care and looking after people, it's a financial.
Directly, because people have to leave the workplace.
Yeah, and they're saying like the free funding's free. It's not. We have to add more to it to make it so that we can afford to pay our bills. So it's not free for parents. It's we're not doing it for free.
You've got 8 staff, so you got all the
and their wages are going up, but the free funding that we're getting paid isn't going up, and I think that's one of the problems, that we're not getting enough to be able to afford to pay the staff. I'd love to pay them loads of money, but you can't, because you only get a base rate from the government. So unless you get unless you say, all right, well, we're going to charge for lunches, for example,
but you got because of poverty.
And it's like how we value those people. I mean, it's how we value childcare workers, and it's like social care workers. I mean, these are doing some of the most important jobs in the country. I mean, what could be more important than nurturing the next generation? And again, they're kept on the lowest possible wages, and the nursery owners can't keep the can't keep the lights on, as we've heard. Many of them are closing down. So it's so under-resourced, and there's so much evidence. The Women's Budget Group does a lot of work to show if you actually pump more in at this level, then you get more out. So, trickle down, and we've heard a lot about, doesn't work. Yeah. If you give more money to the rich people, they just put it in offshore accounts. Trickle up works. If you invest in these things, then you get more mums and dads at work. They get better wages. They pay more taxes. And the Women's Budget Group has done the maths and said it's almost a break even on the direct tax take and everything else to invest in universal childcare, universal free cheap childcare. It's almost a break even. And then when you add on the well-being and the outcomes you get for the children, the health outcomes, the education outcomes, and everything else, then it is, then it pays for itself.
Talking of slogans, you mentioned something to me when we were doing the research. There's trickle-down economics, and there's the phrase you use, donut economics. I think it challenged me to find out what that was.
Yes.
I would have described it briefly as trickle-down economics being for the greedy and donut economics being for the needy.
Yeah.
Does that pretty well sum it up?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, donut economics says that. I mean, traditional economics looks at finance, looks just at money, doesn't it? And it says we need financial growth, and that's the goal of all economics. And Adam Smith's economics is what it was. And there's a famous book called Who Cooked Adam Smith's Dinner. I don't know whether you know that, but he lived at home with his mum, and she cooked his dinner, did his laundry, cleaned his house, and all the work she did didn't exist in economics, in his economic model, right? So you think, well, there's a lot of work that happens which contributes to our world, which should be counted because it's contributing to the economy somehow, even though it's not directly paid. So donut economics says we're not only going for financial benefit, we're also measuring that unpaid work. We're going for ecological benefit, reducing carbon footprint. We're going for biodiverse benefit. We're going for equality benefit. We're going for the well-being of humans, the well-being of the planet, and the well-being of the banks, if you like. So that's what donut economics is. It kind of balances out the economy. And if you look at where we are with the climate emergency and some of the other, problems that we've got of inequalities and poverty and so on in our society, you think, well, actually, if you were more focused on balancing all these parameters, perhaps we'd have a better, happier country. And in fact, those countries who've done it, some have. So Ireland, the Taoiseach said they are taking a donut approach. Donut was coined by an economist called Kate Raworth, funnily enough, a woman. So she has won lots of awards for it now. Lots of countries, cities and others. I know New Zealand looking at it, and Amsterdam in the Netherlands as a city is looking at it. And Congleton's done a little bit of this because we've got a new equality policy which I wrote, which we passed, and we've got environmental policies now. Every decision we make in Congleton, we look at the financial impact, the environmental impact and the equality impact. So we've done our little bit of the donut in Congleton, again, because we've had a Women's Equality Party councillor.
Okay, you two ladies worked so seriously hard and a great deal done. What do you do for fun? When you want to sort of get away from it, and you both tinkle a bit with music, don't you?
Yeah, I play. Yeah. Badly.
You play a bit of guitar.
Guitar and cello, yeah, both quite badly.
I'm a grade 8 E flat horn, tenor horn.
Oh.
Right.
Have the WEP band going.
Right.
Yeah, brass band.
You've no intention to start a women's equality band, have you?
Well, we might do that.
Do you know any other women's equality members who tinkle with instruments?
Yeah, we've got a couple of pianists in the team, yeah.
Right.
So we could think about that. We can all sing. No, judging by the way we chant slogans when we go on protests, we're pretty good at singing.
But are people tone deaf when you protest? And okay, you're quite well known for protesting, and for the break of it, you've got quite a lot to protest about. What's your all-time favourite protest? Yeah.
I think the one I like, the reason...
You can't beat a good protest, can you?
No, you can't, that's true. We've done some really good ones. The March of the Mummies was amazing, and Susie was amazing. And the other people who were on the stage were lawyers and, policy specialists. And Susie just said it how it is, from the coalface, of this problem.
Yeah, right at
and
the
was
coalface,
absolutely brilliant. So that for me is a highlight. And another one, we did actually have a protest outside Fiona Bruce's office about women's reproductive rights, because our lovely MP actually persuaded a load of countries to remove women's reproductive rights from an international treaty, and then lots of countries withdrew from that treaty in disgust because women's reproductive rights are obviously pretty central to women's rights. So yeah, she let the whole UK down in her role as religious envoy in that conference. So we said this is just not good enough, and I'm proud of that one because we were there, we led it. But all the other parties came, apart from the Tories, but all the other parties and people from no party turned up. Women, and angry men turned up, and the cars all along Mountbatten Way, everyone was hooting their horn. We had Tesco vans and bus drivers and all waving, seeing our banners and saying yes. And it just made you realise it is true that 95% of people support women's reproductive rights, because they do, you know,
Yeah.
and Fiona Bruce needed to hear that, and hopefully did.
Any response?
No,
Anything from
No, I know the newspaper editor Jeremy wrote and asked, several of us wrote and asked for some response, but no.
He plays the drums, by the way, the editor.
Yes, he does, I know.
So there's quite a band forming, isn't
Quite
there?
a band forming, yes,
Yeah.
with my colleague Paul Duffy as well. I believe he's already in a band. So,
Yes, yeah. And what next to Women's Equality Party? How do you see the future panning out? Where can you take this movement?
Well, we've done a lot of work nationally on violence against women and girls, and I think we've done a job of getting that on the agenda for other parties, and there's some wonderful work happening and funding going. I mean, Cheshire's just had £1.5 million extra for that project, the Cheshire PCC. So, and I think, you know, so focusing on that, because ultimately, if you're not safe because of your sex, then, you know, you can never have equality, can you? So our focus on violence against women and girls, and also focus on you know, closing the gender pay gap, really. And how do you do that? You get more women continuing their careers successfully. You get more men parenting, because that's another thing. Often men miss out on parenting that they want to be participating in. So our core policies we're going to be gunning ahead with. We are standing all over the country next May. We're very optimistic. We do have other councillors around the country now, and we've had quite a lot of big councils where we've just missed out previously, so we think there's a bit of a groundswell of support that we'll capitalise on. And I think for me, if we can get a place in Cheshire East, there's things that, you know, we've been trying to do here that are really Cheshire East domain, so like childcare and social care, but also public transport, which is a major equality issue too. You know, it's only people on a certain income who can afford a car, especially with today's fuel prices. So, you know, so public transport, childcare, social care, and, you know, moving forward on some of that agenda, I think we need to have a voice in Cheshire East, and that's what we want to do.
If you get on the Cheshire East Council, will you be Tigger? You'll be wonderful because you're the only one.
Yes, I'll be trying to do lots of things. I have actually been working with lots of bits of Cheshire East already, so I'm on the Domestic Abuse Partnership and been working with lots of, you know, been invited to be part of things, and I'm on Cheshire Police's EDI, Equality and Inclusion Board, Scrutiny Board, so I've been invited to get involved in things, and I can see at that level, you know, there is an impact can be had. But again, you have to work with people to do it, you have to work collaboratively, especially if there's only one of you. Hopefully in Congleton there'll be two of us.
Well, time of course is equality in itself, because it waits for no man or for no woman, and sadly we're out of time now.
Well, thanks for having us.
So thank you both for coming on. It's been extremely instructive, illuminating for me. If I may, Susie, allow Kate to close out by saying what she would wish for you. She obviously thinks a lot of you as a person, or you wouldn't be sat here discussing this candidacy. How do you see the future for Susie as a councillor?
I think Susie will be a fantastic councillor. She's a natural leader. People follow where she goes, and she makes things happen. And she often talks herself down, as a lot of women do actually. We tend to undersell ourselves, don't we? And Susie's one of those. She doesn't, you know, but once she's got her foot into the desk, she will make stuff happen. You know, she's full of ideas, she's full of energy, and she enthuses other people. So she'll be a fantastic councillor in Congleton.
Having the support, I think, having Kate's support, a bit reaching behind me helps.
Well,
just state as a fine.
Yeah, that's been lovely interview. Thank you very much, ladies. Thank you, Kay Wesley. Thank you, Susie Mead, and best of luck at the elections.
Thanks very much. Thank you.